This is Joe Biden, the resident of the United States.
I may be Irish, but I'm not stupid. I married Dominic Giacoppa's daughter, so, I got a little Italian in me now,
Insulting to the Irish and the country of Ireland? Absolutely. But it also needs to be pointed out that Joe Biden's wife, Dr. Jill Biden, well, her maiden name is Jacobs because her father's name is Donald Jacobs. Giacoppa, Jacobs, same difference. So, who the hell is Dominic Giacoppa, you ask? Well, that's Dr. Jill's grandfather on her father's side. So, when Joe Biden says,
I married Dominic Giacoppa's daughter,
that would mean Joe Biden married Jill's aunt?
I may be Irish, but I'm not stupid.
And that wasn't the first time Biden has made a joke about marrying an Italian. Back in 2013, at an event hosted by the Italian ambassador, Biden is quoted as saying, I'm always referred to as an Irish politician, but I was smart enough to marry Dominic Giacoppa's granddaughter. So I guess it could be funny, maybe? I don't know. But in recent years, that joke has devolved into something a lot more insulting.
Well, I just want you to know, I may be Irish, but I'm not stupid. I married Dominic Giacoppa's daughter. Okay? Right?
No, you didn't, stupid. But whatever. For Joe Biden, stupid is par for the course.
Well, I want to thank Secretary Mundo for making this forum a success, particularly in Prosper Africa, Deal Room.
What?
That sounds like something that we shouldn't be saying.
I think Biden thinks that the deal room is like the champagne room at a strip club.
Prosper Africa, Deal Room. I kept asking, where's the deal room?
81 million votes, guys. Anyway, over the last year or so, there have been multiple think pieces exploring the question, should Biden run for a second term? And one progressive group, Roots Action, took it a step further and released the following ad called Don't Run Joe.
It's absolutely critical that we don't allow a Republican to win the White House in 2024.
Oh man, you know it's serious because the video is letterboxed for some reason.
I'm concerned with Joe Biden's low polling.
With his low popularity, it's way too much of a gamble.
This is referring to exit poll results from the National Election Poll, a consortium that includes ABC News, CBS News, CNN, and NBC News. They found that 67% of all voters do not want to see Joe Biden run for president in 2024. But keep in mind that 67% of that 67% voted for Republicans. Slightly confusing, I know. But what this roughly means is that only 1 out of 4 Democrat voters want to see Joe Biden run for a second term.
The threat of the GOP has become all too obvious. The stakes could not be higher.
It's weird having Rachel Levine attacking Joe Biden like that, but okay.
If he runs, the election is at serious risk.
Joe Biden representing the status quo in 2024 simply won't cut it.
So according to this New Hampshire voter, Joe Biden represents the status quo, the definition of which means the existing state of affairs, especially regarding social or political issues.
We can't afford to risk the White House to a Republican who could defeat status quo Joe.
Calling Biden status quo Joe isn't going to stick, because in the less than 2 years he's been in office, he's been the exact opposite. Biden just so happens to be the most radical president of our lifetime who has decimated our border security, ruined our energy independence, threatened our national security, and mismanaged our recovering economy.
There's no question that we have a climate emergency. It's a question of willingness to do something about it.
It's not the time for half measures. All Americans need universal health care now.
There's no room to compromise when our abortion rights are on the line.
Status quo Joe is for all of those things, yet the ad is trying to convince voters that since Joe Biden isn't progressive enough, that he will be a drag on the Democrats in 2024. According to this recent CNN SSRS poll, 72% of Democrats/Democrat-leaning independents would prefer a nominee other than Joe Biden. But notice that there is not a consensus as to whom should be the nominee. And ranking highest on that list is former South Bend, Indiana mayor and current Secretary of Transportation Pete Buttigieg, who garnered 5% support. Governor Gavin Newsom and Senator Bernie Sanders each received 4%. Vice President Kamala Harris received a whopping 3%, and Elizabeth Warren, i.e. Senator Karen, garnered 2%. Then the rest of that list comes in at 1% each, including Senator Cory Booker, Governor Jared Polis, Michelle Obama, Senator Amy Klobuchar, Congresswoman Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, Governor Gretchen Whitmer, or someone younger. And consider that just about everyone on the planet is younger than Joe Biden, so that could be just about everyone.
Our ideas are way more popular than Joe Biden is.
Joe Biden running undermines the Democratic Party's chances in 2024.
So what the ad isn't telling you is that despite Biden's lack of popularity, of the Democrats and Democrat-leaning independents who prefer a nominee other than Joe Biden, 78% would still vote for him, with 51% saying they will definitely vote for him, and 28% saying that they will probably vote for him. And if the past two elections have proved anything, it's that Democrats will turn out and cast their ballot for anyone with a D next to their name.
The Eagles are so much better than the Eagles!
And remember, Joe Biden got the most votes ever in a presidential election, despite Joe Biden being Joe Biden.
Play the radio. Make sure the television, make sure you have the record player on at night, the phone. Make sure the kids hear words.
Pro tip, never take parenting advice from Joe Biden. I mean, look how his son Hunter turned out. And speaking of Hunter, when it comes to the Don't Run Joe ad, it makes no mention of Joe Biden's corruption, the alleged involvement with his son's foreign business dealings, and how it's all going to be investigated in the next Congress. No, instead Roots Action is complaining that Joe Biden's not progressive enough.
Status quo Joe.
In a statement, Roots Action said, "Our outreach to people who vote in New Hampshire's Democratic primaries is just getting started, and we will soon be expanding to other early primary states." What a waste of money. It's supposed to be targeting New Hampshire voters, but they're running this ad at least a year and 3 months before the New Hampshire primary with no viable candidate to replace him. And if Joe Biden is so unpopular with voters, then why do you need an ad to tell voters how unpopular Joe Biden is? Furthermore, if you're going to use a free After Effects template to create graphics, the very least you could do is replace the placeholder text. Doubtful two-bed way pleasure confined followed. Shoo up ye away, no eyes life, or wear this. Perfectly did suspicion daughters, but his intention.
We can't afford to lose. Don't run, Joe.
Don't run, Joe.
Don't run, Joe.
Don't run, Joe.
Do you think that Joe Biden gives a that a hard left progressive group is calling him status quo Joe? Joe Biden won't even stop lying about things even after he's been called out on it.
And you know, I think that there's I've been in and out, not as obviously combatant, but in and out of Afghanistan, Iraq, and his areas 38, 39 times. Not as president, only twice as president.
And as per usual, Joe Biden has been telling this lie for years, despite the fact that he's been debunked by both the Washington Post and PolitiFact. In PolitiFact's article on the matter, they gave him a false rating, writing, Biden's campaign later clarified and told the Washington Post that the correct number was actually 21.
One of the last times I flew into Iraq, I went up in the cockpit and they fire me what's called a silver bullet when they fire the president and there's a special container in the plane they stick in, and I went up with a group.
Except as president, Joe Biden has been to Iraq or Afghanistan 0 times. Next thing you know, Biden will claim that he was the ghost of Kiev.
You know, my dad, when I got elected vice president, he said, Joey, Uncle Frank fought in the Battle of the Bulge. He was not famed very well now, not because of the Battle of the Bulge, but he said, and he won the Purple Heart. And he never received it. He never got it. Do you think you could help him get it? We'll surprise him.
Okay, so for clarity, Joe Biden Jr. was elected vice president. Joe Biden Sr. was like, hey, your Uncle Frank is in poor health. Think you can help him get the Purple Heart he never got? And then Biden claims he did just that.
I said, Uncle Frank, you won this, and I want the piece. He said, I don't want the damn thing. I'm serious. He said, I don't want it. I said, what's the matter, Uncle Frank? You earned it. He said, yeah, but the others died. The others died. I lived. I don't want it.
Okay, Joe Biden was vice president from 2009 to 2017. And the story of Uncle Frank and the Purple Heart supposedly took place sometime during that period. However, there are a couple of small, insignificant details. Joe Biden Sr. died in 2002, and Uncle Frank died in 1999. Not to mention that there isn't any proof that Frank Biden even received the Purple Heart in the first place. And as the New York Post points out, Frank Biden's tombstone does not identify him as a Purple Heart honoree, nor does his obituary. And Uncle Frank's reaction to his nephew trying to pin the Purple Heart in his chest sounds strikingly familiar to a story that Biden used to tell on the 2020 campaign trail about giving a medal to a Navy captain. A story that wasn't true, by the way.
And the general wanted me to pin the silver star on him. I got up there and stand and said, God's truth, my word is a Biden. He stood at attention. I went to pin him. I said, sir, I don't want the damn thing. I said, Uncle Frank, you won this, and I want the piece. He said, I don't want the damn thing. Do not do that. He died. He died. I said, what's the matter, Uncle Frank? You earned it. He said, yeah, but the others died. The others died. I lived. I don't want it. I don't want the damn thing.
So did Frank Biden actually win a Purple Heart? Who knows? But all signs point to the Uncle Frank Biden story being, at the very least, mostly bullshit. Just like when Joe Biden lied about being a top student in college, or how he lied about marching in civil rights protests and getting arrested, or how he lied about driving a tractor trailer, or how he grew up in the Puerto Rican community, or the lie about his house burning down when in fact it was only a small kitchen fire. And don't forget about his lie about having a conversation with a train conductor who had retired more than a decade prior and had died 2 years before the conversation supposedly took place. But instead of calling Joe Biden out for what he really is, a pathological liar, Roots Action thinks that the best strategy is to call him Status Quo Joe. And if you're gonna do that, you might as well just hand him the keys to the 2024 nomination right now. And on that note, that's it for now. Follow me on Twitter at Don'tWalkRun. A special thanks to Poofy for her help with the script, and be sure that you're still subscribed to the channel. As always, I hope to see you next time. If there is a next time.